What if the most powerful force behind America's WW2 victory wasn't the military, but the corporations? Steel, oil, cars, giant industries retooled for war. But at what cost? Who profited? And did patriotism or profit drive the war machine? World War II was more than a global conflict, it was a business opportunity. U.S. corporations became the backbone of the Allied war effort. From tanks to toothpaste, industries mobilized on an unprecedented scale, forever transforming capitalism, warfare, and America's global dominance in the name of victory. When Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, the U.S. industrial engine roared to life. Overnight, factories retooled from civilian goods to war production. Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors stopped making cars and started building tanks, jeeps, and planes by the thousands, setting records that astonished even the military. President Roosevelt's War Production Board, WPB, coordinated the transformation. It prioritized contracts, raw materials, and schedules. A staggering $183 billion in government contracts flooded corporate America, turning CEOs into wartime commanders and production floors into battlefronts. Efficiency replaced peacetime profit margins, at least on paper. The arsenal of democracy wasn't just a slogan, it became America's war identity. Henry Ford's Willow Run plant produced a B-24 bomber every hour. Shipyards in California built Liberty ships in days instead of months. It wasn't just fast, it was a feat of scale never seen before. While the government provided capital and coordination, corporations delivered volume. General Electric, Westinghouse, and DuPont manufactured everything from electronics to chemicals. Standard Oil churned aviation fuel, while Goodyear produced rubber for military tires. Collaboration between government and industry blurred public and private roles. Military leaders often deferred to corporate expertise. The Pentagon knew that war required logistics and output, not just strategy. Business titans like William Knudsen were recruited directly from industry to manage war production. The result? An economy running at full throttle, on patriotic rhetoric and private capital. This vast mobilization ended the Great Depression. Unemployment dropped from 14% to under 2%. Women and minorities filled jobs in factories, shifting social norms and creating the foundation for post-war civil rights movements. The war changed not only the economy but also American society itself. But not everything was idealistic. Wartime shortages, price controls, and rationing were real. So were strikes and tensions between labor and management. Despite booming contracts, wages lagged. Corporate power grew, but not without scrutiny and friction, setting the stage for post-war debates about capitalism and control. Some companies saw WW2 as a civic duty. Others saw dollar signs. Major firms posted record profits during the war. Critics accused them of war profiteering. Congressional hearings exposed overbilling, fraud, and sweetheart contracts that made billionaires out of boardrooms while soldiers died in Europe and the Pacific. Standard Oil faced backlash for deals with Nazi Germany before America entered the war. IBM's punch card technology, used in logistics, and allegedly in Nazi census efforts, raised ethical questions. Corporate alliances before Pearl Harbor haunted many firms as revelations of fascist collaboration surfaced during wartime. The Truman Committee, led by then-Senator Harry Truman, investigated waste and profiteering. It saved taxpayers an estimated $15 billion. The hearings made headlines and embarrassed corporate giants. Some firms were fined, others blacklisted. Still, many continued earning massive profits with little accountability. Price controls and profit caps were introduced to curb abuse. But many corporations skirted them with creative accounting and subcontracting. While soldiers earned $50 per month, some executives enjoyed bonuses tied to skyrocketing revenues. The moral line between support and exploitation grew increasingly thin. Despite scandals, many Americans saw corporations as heroes. War bond drives were often led by corporate campaigns. Ads framed companies as patriotic partners in victory. Rosie the Riveter was both a real worker and a brand symbol. Capitalism rebranded itself as Freedom's Forge. Yet tension simmered. Labor unions demanded fair wages and safe conditions. The National War Labor Board was formed to mediate disputes. Strikes were rare but impactful. Roosevelt even seized plants when workers walked out. Behind the patriotic veneer, war production was a contested, profit-laden enterprise. As the war ended, questions remained: should corporations be rewarded for patriotism? Or taxed for profiteering? The line between private interest and national duty blurred. While many firms had sacrificed, others had leveraged war for wealth. That duality defines the business of war to this day. Corporations didn't just mass-produce, they innovated. Boeing and Lockheed designed next-generation bombers. DuPont developed synthetic rubber and explosives. Bell Labs laid groundwork for radar and early computing. War contracts incentivized not just output but cutting-edge science, turning U.S. firms into military technology pioneers. The Manhattan Project epitomized this collaboration. DuPont ran the plutonium plant at Hanford, while GE and Westinghouse managed complex systems. Los Alamos may have been a government lab, but corporate infrastructure and logistics built the bomb. The line between national research and private enterprise faded. Military demands accelerated innovation. Convair designed long-range bombers. IBM improved logistics through punch card automation. Dow Chemical synthesized materials never before used in industry. The war wasn't just fought with steel, it was fought with ideas. Capitalism weaponized intelligence. Corporate R&D expanded rapidly. By 1945, industrial labs employed thousands of scientists. The government funded their work, but patents often stayed with corporations. This gave firms post-war advantages in everything from plastics to computing. War birthed entire industries, and private monopolies on public-funded inventions. Pharmaceutical giants also grew during the war. Penicillin, mass-produced by Pfizer, revolutionized battlefield medicine. Wartime needs turned small labs into pharmaceutical giants. Government investment accelerated research, but profits followed the patents into the private sector, ushering in a new medical-industrial era. This tech boom fed Cold War readiness. Radar, jet propulsion, early computing, all developed through wartime contracts, became vital in post-war defense. The military-industrial complex was born not in the Cold War, but in the heart of WW2. Corporations emerged not just richer, but more powerful. Innovation brought dominance, but dependence too. The U.S. government grew reliant on private firms for advanced weapons. That reliance came with influence. Corporate lobbies expanded, seeking favorable terms. What began as patriotic service evolved into a permanent, profitable defense economy, a legacy that still shapes U.S. policy. War production needed workers, millions of them. With men at the front, women and minorities filled the gap. The war opened factories to groups long excluded. Black Americans, Latinos, and women were hired en masse. The result was both opportunity and conflict. Rosie the Riveter became a symbol, but real women broke barriers. In 1940, women made up 27% of the workforce. By 1945, that number jumped to 37%. They worked in shipyards, steel mills, and munitions plants. Their pay was lower, but the experience reshaped gender roles permanently. Black Americans migrated north and west for factory jobs. The Second Great Migration saw over 1 million move. Detroit, Los Angeles, and Chicago swelled. While doors opened, discrimination endured. Segregation, job ceilings, and racial violence were common, despite President Roosevelt's Executive Order 8802 banning defense job discrimination. Labor unions grew rapidly. The Congress of Industrial Organizations, CIO, organized thousands of wartime workers. Strikes were discouraged, but grievances surged. Women demanded childcare and pay equity. Black workers demanded promotion and respect. Factories became flashpoints for social change as well as production. Tensions led to violence. The 1943 Detroit race riot killed 34 and injured hundreds. Zoot Suit riots in Los Angeles highlighted anti-Mexican sentiment. War industries reflected, and amplified, America's racial contradictions. Patriotic unity masked deep social fault lines emerging in real time on factory floors. Despite tension, gains were undeniable. Women gained workplace experience that fueled later feminist movements. Black veterans returned demanding civil rights. The war economy didn't just win a war, it planted seeds of revolution. Labor, race, and profit intersected in ways that changed America's trajectory. Post-war, many women and minorities were pushed out of jobs. But expectations had changed. The business of war wasn't just about profits, it was about power. Social hierarchies had shifted. The factories that built tanks also forged demands for equality that would erupt in decades to come. Victory in 1945 left the U.S. as an economic superpower. But corporations didn't return to peacetime easily. The government continued defense spending, fueling a new era, the military-industrial complex. Cold War fears ensured that wartime profits became peacetime policy, and business boomed. Companies like Lockheed, Boeing, and Raytheon thrived on Cold War contracts. DuPont and Monsanto turned wartime chemical production into consumer goods. Radar technology birthed television. The industries of war seeded the conveniences, and complexities, of modern life. Wartime capitalism became permanent infrastructure. Eisenhower's 1961 farewell speech warned of the military-industrial complex. He had seen it grow firsthand. Corporations now influenced foreign policy. Defense contractors lobbied Congress. War became not just a strategy, but a market. The blurred line between security and commerce became policy. Taxes funded both weapons and welfare. But corporate influence grew disproportionate. Pentagon budgets climbed. War became business. Korea, Vietnam, and beyond extended the profitable wartime model. Public fear was matched by private gain. The business of war had become a cycle, self-sustaining and resistant to oversight. The Cold War cemented the structure. R&D partnerships continued. Universities, labs, and firms worked as defense partners. The World War II economy never really ended, it evolved. Corporations helped win the war, but their post-war power reshaped American democracy, sometimes bending it to economic interests. Critics pointed to distorted priorities, education lagged behind weapons funding, healthcare lost out to fighter jets. But defenders claimed peace through strength required a strong defense economy. Either way, corporate America's role in war had become permanent, a transformation that began in 1941 and never reversed. In 2025, echoes remain. Defense budgets top $800 billion. Private contractors run logistics, surveillance, and AI systems. From drones to cyber warfare, war is still good business. The WW2 legacy lives on, in stock portfolios, lobbying halls, and foreign policy decisions that often reflect profit as much as principle. World War II made U.S. corporations war's silent victors, transforming factories, society, and foreign policy. The legacy remains, war as business, profit as motive. Like and subscribe for more untold stories of power and history, and join the conversation shaping how we remember the price of victory. See you in the next video.